What's up, guys, and welcome to Dice House Monday 2026. What an incredible year 2025 was. We are absolutely over the moon about where this podcast is heading and what we've been able to achieve. We are looking forward to an even bigger 2026. The first episode, Tim Swiel, professional rugby player and friend of mine. I can't wait to share this one with you. It was absolute banger. I'm going to throw you straight in, but before I do that, as you can see, I've come home from my 9 to 5. I'm about to put in hours into editing this podcast, which I absolutely love. But I just want to ask you to take a couple of seconds. If you haven't clicked the follow button on Spotify, please do that. Subscribe on YouTube. And if you like the episode, click like, comment below, and share with a friend. We have massive plans to take this podcast to the next level, but we need your help to help us get out there and share with as many people as possible. So thank you so much for everything you've done up until this point for the first 2 years. Let's go year 3. We're going even bigger, to the moon. See you later. Right. Timothy Swiel, thank you so much for coming to the Dice House Monday podcast.
Thanks, Roscoe. Really good to be here. Really good to be here. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me.
Of course. Full circle moment. For those listening, Timothy and I went to school together. I actually played rugby on the same team as him once upon a time. Grade 3, I think.
Sure, long ago.
But this is cool. Absolute full circle moment, to go through a schooling career with you, to watch your sort of pro rugby and to be in London today with you is quite sick.
Yeah, no, sure. It's been a good ride. Back at Wet Pups.
Yeah.
All those years ago.
Yeah.
And we've stayed in touch ever since, which has been cool. Our year group at school have been, we're pretty communicative, and yeah, thanks for having me on.
The Raw Dogs, yeah.
The Raw Dogs.
Shut up. Okay, so let's dive into it from the start. Like, obviously, I watched you as a schoolboy rugby player, and we watched from the sidelines. You were pretty much the best rugby player all the way from grade 3 to like matric. Walk me through like schoolboy rugby for you, and did you feel sort of any pressures or anything like that in those years? Like, what was it like to be, the best rugby player in the school?
I mean, I don't know if I was the best in the school, but I suppose, in those younger years, everything kind of does flow, so it's your passion. I remember, grade 1 or even before that, all the fathers had a rugby day, their day. So whatever they were passionate about, one dad would have like a boat day, and my dad did a rugby day, so ever since then, I think that was my kind of...
Okay. I was going to ask you where your passion for rugby came from.
Yeah, so that was a pivotal kind of thing where I always look back on to kind of remember why I started playing. And obviously being from South Africa, it's in our blood. So...
How old were you on that day?
Must have been about 5.
Okay, so early on, yeah.
Yeah, really early.
Okay.
So, yeah, from that day, kind of really enjoyed it. Went to all the summer camps, summer holiday training sessions type things. And then, yeah, I suppose I was in the schools I was at were kind of rugby-based schools, and they kind of allowed you to grow your passion in that sense. And yeah, so the schoolboy stuff was really cool. When I was 16, I came over to England on exchange, and it gave me a different perspective of playing in different weather, with different fans, different people, out your comfort zone. And for me, that was also kind of a big thing for me. And then going back to South Africa after that was kind of into the Western Province system, and then through the age group stuff, and then kind of I've been all over playing in different countries and, jumping all over different teams.
Absolutely, and we'll get into that. But talk me through, like, when you were at school, was the goal just rugby focused? Were you just, rugby's the only thing that I'm passionate about. I want to, become a professional. This is the life I want to live.
Well, I suppose I did enjoy other sports, so I played cricket up until about 14. I enjoyed my athletics, my sprints. Not like you with the longer distance. I struggled with that.
I was doing shot put at school.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I really did enjoy other sports. And even on the side, I'd be playing tennis or ping pong in the boarding house, that kind of stuff. So I'd always have that hand-eye type stuff from an early age. But as I said, growing up in those environments, rugby definitely... was at the forefront of it all. And yeah, I suppose it's just been such a passion of mine. And like, I remember when everyone wanted to be ballerinas and policemen, I was there in my scrum cap, shoulder pads as like a 6-year-old watching maybe the under 13 first team, and like following these guys like they were my heroes, So yeah, it goes way back. And now, as I'm kind of getting into that transition period over the next 2-3 years, going from rugby to what's next, it's not just going from one job to another. It's kind of going all the way back to the age of 5, and then changing from that type of mindset,
Yeah.
So it can be tough on us at times, but yeah, it's been an enjoyable ride so far.
Yeah, and in terms of like the schoolboy rugby, do you think the pressures, so when we watch a game, we always think, how do these guys handle the pressure, the crowd, and like all of that? Do you think because you just have such a passion for the game, you kind of just locked in? Like when you're on the field, like what's sort of going through your mind and how do you handle that pressure, especially under 18?
Yeah, well, I think the schoolboy rugby in South Africa is definitely the top in the world. The people kind of used to ask me about the differences between the South African schoolboy rugby and, let's say, the UK, the English schoolboy rugby. And I would say, the English system, they have this tradition of playing at 2:30 on a Saturday. So all the teams play at that time most of the year. So half the team will play at the away team's venue,
Right.
and the other half will play at their school. So it's not like in South Africa we have under 14s from 8:39 and you
Yeah.
build it up, and then the first team's at the end.
Yeah.
So I would play Bishop's Rondebosch Derby or Paul Jim Paul Boys, where there's 26,000.
Yeah.
Our derby, what, 12, 15,000. When I was playing in the UK, you'd have like 5 men and their dogs and maybe granny,
Oh, wow,
so
okay.
it's very different.
Mm.
But in England, their age group stuff is really good. The systems under 18, under 20, they've traditionally been really good. But yeah, our schoolboy system is really good. And at times you probably think, is there that academic sport balance at times? I
Yeah.
probably focus too much on the
Yeah, on the
rugby side
sport.
of things, and now I'm playing a bit of catch up. But it's hard to say. I'm so passionate about what I experienced with that schoolboy rugby. And I definitely think it's grown even more to today with all these derbies, and but that does come with some pressures, which can be hard.
I was going to say, is that maybe detrimental to some of the children, too much pressure on the rugby? And we spoke about it the other day when younger kids are being pushed into a particular sport because they might become pro, but they're then being told you can only do X, for the rest of your life from a 9-year-old sort of child,
Yeah, that's tough because like, kind of history and science shows that, or statistics show, should I say, that let's say you've got a brilliant cricketer at under 13, and maybe their parents or the county or provincial teams are saying they need to stop every other sport to focus on cricket. But stats show that if that individual carries on with his other sports, his or her other sports, they actually become better at that sport that they're trying to pursue. So the timing of transferring to that only that one sport can be detrimental or can kind of be beneficial, I suppose. So it's all about having maybe a good support system around you. My parents are obviously very supportive throughout my kind of early years, which I was lucky to have. But yeah, and I suppose nowadays you get high school coaches who are coaching rugby first teams in South Africa who are on a level with the Super Rugby, or should I say the URC Currie Cup coaches in terms of ability, Sometimes the pinnacle might even be coaching a first team at school, because the schoolboy rugby is kind of
massive,
but also maybe more professional than some of the Currie Cup kind of SA Cup type.
lower end sort
Yeah,
of
exactly.
rugby. Yeah, that's interesting. And obviously it bends well for the players, because for you to then go into pro rugby, having been surrounded by 26,000 fans, you've kind of felt it before, and now you're going in with an understanding and like a bit of knowledge, other than England rugby where they haven't had that before.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because you could go from playing in front of 15,000 in your schoolboy derby, and then you in an academy the next year where, I know there's Varsity Cup, which gets great viewership, but you could be in an academy where you're playing under 19, not many watching. So you can have those situations where you're the man one year, and then the next year you kind of, there's not just the physical and match day side to you. There's a lot of the mental side and all that kind of stuff. Whereas in England, there's a bit of a slow, gradual growth where you have not many watching at schoolboy, maybe some under 20, national or county stuff going under 18, under 20, and it gradually grows. Which is that the better way? Is it not? It's just very interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense. I never thought of it that way, where you have maybe the best rugby player of his time in matric, and then going to SA schools and maybe catching a lesson, or coming short and then being too full for his boots.
Yeah, it's like going from grade 7 to grade 8. You're the main man
Yeah.
or whoever at prep school. You go to grade 8, you're a new boy, you're
Yeah.
struggling to find your feet. So it's a similar
Because you're still
situation.
quite young versus now you're playing all age group as well. So like you open yourself up to everyone above.
Yeah, I suppose that can also not, again, be a good or a bad thing. Sometimes players that get exposed to the high level too early, it doesn't actually work, and vice versa. It does work. So we've seen different scenarios, but it's all up to the coaches and the people managing these players to kind of get that right.
So tell me your journey. When you left school, did you want to play all the way and get to the Springboks? Was that your goal? Like, to walk me through how that sort of went in those early years. I know you started at Western Province.
Yes, so from under 16 through the age groups, I was at Western Province. Got my professional contract being at the academy in Stellenbosch, the SAS, Stellenbosch Academy of Sport.
Mm.
It was in the first year that they built that facility, which was great. Played under 21s. Well, actually, in high school, played South Africa schools, which was a huge honor for me. That was such a nice moment. Then, yes, was at Western Province, and then Jake White went to the Sharks for a year, or in, 2014. I went there for a season. I'd signed actually a 3-year deal. And then he left after a season, and I'd played Super Rugby, got all kind of made my debut there. Then I got opportunity to come over to Harlequins on a loan deal in the off season, and I'd loved it so much. I'd played quite a lot in that 3-4 months, and had the option to stay, and we kind of worked that out. Ended up staying there for another 3 seasons, which was a great opportunity. And it's a tough one because I pulled out of the South African under-20 team, which at the time was quite tough because all you wanting to do is play, but I would have been country locked. So, having this kind of British passport,
Right.
even though my passion was to probably play for the Springboks, I chose to not play in that tournament 3 or 4 games. But who knows? Could have that catapulted me better into a better position, or actually has given me opportunities abroad, because back in those days, you had to have been like to be seen as skilled labor. You would have
Right.
had to play for the Springboks to play in England.
Right.
So coming over to Quins, if I'd played in those under-20 kind of tournaments, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And then similarly going over to Japan, being not an international player, more like a foreigner that's not an international player, that helped there too. So I think all in all, it's been really fun. And yeah, it's been a great journey.
So is it more available for younger rugby players to play overseas now and then go back to be a Springbok than it was back in the day?
Well, I suppose Rassie has the plans that they have is that you kind of have to make it in South Africa first.
Right.
So very rarely do you get a player that goes abroad in the early 20s and becomes a Springbok. You do get the occasional one if there's not enough depth in that specific position.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's highly unlikely.
So when you moved to the Harlequins, mentally, was that sort of your cutoff from the Springbok?
Yeah, I would say in hindsight, I probably wasn't as patient in South Africa, It's that same thing where you're in high school and things are just happening, and then all of a sudden I was at Western Province and I left because then to the Sharks opportunity, and then before you know it, you're at Harlequins and you kind of moving all over. But I suppose the main goal in my career would have been to play for the Springboks, and I suppose the second main goal would be to use rugby to travel the world and experience new things. And I've definitely done the latter. Yes.
Yeah. And having played on like 4 continents now, where would home be for you in terms of playing rugby, like say for the future?
Definitely South Africa. So like for me, in 2020, unfortunately, my father passed away, which is a really hard time for us, our family and everyone. But the one thing that brought was me going home to my family, to my mom and brother. Ended up meeting my wife there back in end of 2021-ish time.
Okay.
Actually, beginning of 2021. Gotta be careful. She's on the date. And going back and actually making my debut for the Stormers, which was a childhood dream of mine.
Yeah.
I think the whole Western Province Stormers idea was probably one of those, because I'm from Cape Town, that was like my dream and my goal. I'd played in the Currie Cup before. I'd left abroad in those young years, but then coming back and making my Stormers debut that's
Amazing.
Probably my career highlight. I ran out for them as a mascot when I was like 10 years old,
cool.
so it's like kind of full circle moment type thing. and I've stayed in touch with a lot of those players and coaches, and I really do enjoy their systems, and they're having a good season this year, which is so good to see. But yeah, played all over, and it's been really, really cool.
Because we talk about, a lot of South Africans are playing overseas now. I think there are 9 players playing in Japan. Is that wasn't happening as much in the past? Has something changed where the players are allowed to sort of play offshore and then come back?
Well, I think traditionally you'd have guys playing Super Rugby, and that didn't overlap with playing in Japan, so they would do both.
Yeah.
And then players towards the end of their careers, like a Jean de Villiers going to Munster, or a Victor Madfield, Northampton Saints, and many other examples. Francois Lowe, he went quite early to Bath. You're kind of earning that foreign currency
Yeah.
a little bit
I see the
earlier, or
plus
a
for
little
the
bit later.
player. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's more probably a currency thing, but also, again, to travel the world, experience new cultures. I think there was a time where if you were in the Springbok setup, you had to be a local player, but that's
Yeah.
changed over the
Yeah.
last few years. So why not go and experience it, experience playing abroad? And it's definitely helped the Springbok group
Yeah.
experiencing those different environments, like Thomas Dutoy done so well at Bath, Damien Dialendi in Japan doing so well there. And yeah, so and the URC is getting bigger and better. So even if they don't go abroad, they're getting as good of an opportunity at home. So in all, it's
Yeah.
a win-win for.
I do miss the Super Rugby. Like, I miss the Tri Nations, the Super Rugby, some of that old school Australian, New Zealand rivalry. Like playing, not Christchurch. What's the Crusaders at
Yes.
Christchurch? Like
Yes.
those games were like quite epic. But I think the problem with URC, and I spoke to someone about this the other day, is time. The South Africans, it's not your normal Saturday rugby time. Does that make sense? When those games are being played.
Well, I suppose you're in that 9 a.m. wake up to watch the Highlanders versus Stormers.
Yeah.
That whole Super Rugby,
Yeah.
there was quite a camaraderie around that. But I suppose, the North, South, England, South Africa, or UK, kind of URC, Europe, South Africa, it definitely is helping the South African teams. Super Rugby level probably gone down a little bit. All the teams have said they miss all the South African teams being in it.
Yeah.
And who knows, in the next few years, in the next decade, there'll probably be a world league. Rugby's changing, chopping
Yeah.
and changing quite a lot. So it's up to the high echelons to keep
Yeah.
it going.
All the people with the money. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been excited to talk to you about, obviously, mental performance, because I know that's something that you're focusing on now. And we talk a lot as peers and friends about the rugby and the rugby teams and Rassie, and but we actually don't know what we're talking about. So it's cool to have a rugby player that's really been in the changing room over the years and someone that understands the game. Let's start with just talking about the Springboks. What do you think is making them who they are? How are they being the better team? What do you think Rassie has implemented there?
So I think everyone is talking about this depth that the Springboks have at the moment. But I mean, you have to do something to create that depth. And that's what these coaches have done. Whereas other teams, if you look at France, England, Ireland, all these other nations, New Zealand, they all have a lot of depth. But it's how you kind of get that depth to the top and create that kind of squad environment to allow for that depth to kind of come through. And I think Rassie and them have done that really well over the last few years. I think for those first two World Cup victories, there was more of a core group of players, but now I think they used close to 50 players a season. So, I mean, that's
radical.
Yeah, really bold decisions are being made there. And I think a big thing I talk about a lot is coaching culture, but also the player coach culture, how the coaches and the players, how they are interacting, and the kind of energy that happens in those environments, whether it be in hotels or on the field, and how that messaging is getting across. And I think it's really good in the South African system there with the Springboks, and they are cohesive. You've got a lot of the guys were in the same team under 19 in Western Province, from Earburn, Sia, Damien Dialendi, Stephen Kitsoff, who's recently retired. So there has been cohesion over the years with that group.
Yeah.
And yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
One thing he's done exceptionally well, and you touched on it the other day when we spoke about mental performance, is selection anxiety. That's obviously quite a key thing in all professional sportsmen, let alone rugby players. But he managed to get the team to understand that it's a team sheet of 22 and or 50, where Malcolm Marx was on the bench for 2 years, and now he was the best player of the world. How's that implementation is quite interesting.
Yeah, I suppose the big driver for them is South Africa as a country. So
Mm.
things that are happening in South Africa, positive things, negative things, things to bring hope, inspiration, all of that. And I think they've really used that as their driving force.
Mm.
And I think it's greater than most countries, you know, how do I say this? Countries like Ireland, they have a lot of passion, New Zealand, South
Yeah.
Africa, but, the messaging and the way they're using our country and the things that happen there to use that as motivation has been outstanding. And it's been our
Yeah.
pride and joy.
I'm getting all the thrills.
Mm.
But like, because I'm thinking now, the World Cup, those 3 games were won by 1 point. You can't say there's no mental performance effect in that. I mean, there has to be, to get
Yeah.
over the line. Like, there has to be some form of different belief in those players' heads to get them over the line to do something like that.
Yeah, it's definitely the belief part. And I think the way they train, the standards they train at, the way that, when the players aren't playing, they have these like kind of meetups. They don't actually train, but they go into, whether it's online or in person, and they talk about the next year focuses and all that kind of stuff. So the players are as aligned as the coaches. In a lot of teams, the coaches are aligned because they all know what they want to do, but sometimes the players don't always know what the coaches want. Where I feel that Rassie gets that, Rassie and all of them. I mean, there are about 10 coaches there. Don Human, he's brilliant. They're proper coaches. He gets the guys to his farm and he's telling them what to do, like literally using his hands to say, do this, do that. Whereas some coaches are behind laptops a bit too much or blowing too many whistles. And I feel like the balance that the Springboks have with their coaching staff has been amazing.
It must be so interesting to deal with such personalities. I listened to a podcast with Jurgen Klopp. I don't know if you saw it on Diary of a CEO. And he spoke about how he had to handle someone like Sadio Mane and Mo Salah on the same team. But 2 people coming from completely different backgrounds to someone like a Jordan Henderson or, a Peter Crouch. I don't think he coached Peter Crouch, but you know what I mean? Like completely different backgrounds and completely different personalities that you have to adjust to. And so when you're speaking to Sadio Mane, you have to take into consideration like his understanding of life, can be so different to someone else.
Yeah, well, I think the old school way of dealing with a team is that treat everyone the same. But I think the newer way is to actually treat everyone differently according to who they are, And Eddie Jones, I know he's done that well in the past from what I've kind of heard, where like he'll work with a certain personality and he knows what they're like, so he knows what strings to pull on, as opposed to maybe the more quiet guy he'll treat differently, those types of things. And I think that type of coaching philosophy is great. You can see the Jurgen Klopps, the Pep Guardiolas, they have a bit of their arm around type thing around the player, and that makes a huge difference. You're building that rapport and knowing each player individually. And I mean, back to, you say, Sadio Mane and Salah, let's say you have players in the team who maybe don't like each other. They probably did like each other, but if you align to the one goal of what the team wants to achieve and the messages and the way you kind of get your team on board, you don't have to have 15 or 11 or whatever players like loving each other, being best friends. You can have these different personalities, but as long as the goal and the understanding of what to achieve, I reckon, is the driving force. And in these successful teams, that's what happens.
So as a coach, I know we're picking on Liverpool a bit here, but it's quite hot in the press. Mo Salah has been dropped and now he's causing havoc in the media. As a manager, what would you do in that circumstance where one of your best players is maybe stepping out of line and thinking he's too big for his boots? Like, there's no player bigger than the club type saying? Like, do you agree with that?
Yeah, there's definitely no player bigger than the club, but at the same time, the coach and the players' relationship and rapport with each other needs to be high and good all the time, I suppose. So maybe that could have been dealt with off the cameras.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm not, every environment is different, so you can't really you can't go into too much. I can't go into too much detail about that.
Okay, so I wanted mental performance. You said something to me the other day was really interesting because the difference between mental performance and mental health. Could you just explain that difference to us?
Okay, yeah. So mental performance. No, sure. Mental performance is kind of training your mind like it's a muscle. So you go to the gym, you train your biceps, or whatever you do, your legs. You're not just going to do it once. You're going to do it day after day, month after month, and you're building that consistency. It's the same as mental performance. You're using mental skills training techniques to kind of gym your mind, should I say, over a certain period of time. That'll definitely help within your training week and in terms of your weekend match days. And I've just finished my master's in sport and performance psychology. And yeah, I'm en route for the certification, the mental performance certification, which is really exciting. I think it formalizes my rugby career a little bit, and maybe things I might have needed
Yeah.
in my earlier days would have helped me in that regard. And I'm doing a bit of work.
So that's super interesting. So many questions. But what would you say to Tim Swiel, 21 years old, that you didn't maybe get the message from back then, like in terms of mental performance?
Well, for me, it was like, I'd always say every week was like a job interview. So, on the Tuesday, you either picked or you're not. So it's literally yes or no type thing. And every week it's the same, things like that. Things maybe relying on your parents, maybe like a rugby agent or friends, family, too much injuries. I've had quite a few surgeries. All these things are uncontrollable. So my message there is that I may be focused on all those uncontrollables a lot, where mental performance is a controllable. It's like you rocking up at the gym and doing your work and building stronger, getting better. It's a controllable, and I think working on those controllables and having a system around you that allows for that is definitely the key.
So is that sort of the goal, that you're doing these studies and you're going back? I know you're coaching at a boys' school in England. Are you trying to better their sort of mental performance? That's the goal. And do you think that that's ultimately going to picture them better for life, rather not just on the rugby pitch, but off it as well?
Yeah, the main goal definitely is for that, to allow someone to kind of grow in those cognitive whatever type skills for the rest of their life or lives. For me, it's whether this kind of degree makes me a better rugby coach, or if I take it further with the mental performance sports psych. I'm still deciding. I've been doing quite a lot of one-on-ones with guys, and it's been really rewarding. And I think the way I coach now, when I build those one-on-one type that type of rapport, a lot of the stuff I've learned, I'm emulating or implementing, should I say. And yeah, so it's been really cool.
It's super interesting because you obviously have to find something post rugby. Otherwise when you leave rugby, you kind of, what's next?
Yeah, well, I suppose because it's all I've known for so long, and
Yeah.
in sports psychology, you talk about athletic identity. So
Yes.
if I'm in a conversation with people and they don't end up talking about rugby, or don't care about what I do, you could feel a bit left out. So I've tried to, over the last few years, be
Get
less
into more pockets almost.
exactly less
Yeah.
defined by rugby and become a bit more of a holistic person.
Yeah.
I think this. I'm into my fermented foods, the gut
Yes.
health stuff,
Yeah.
and then the mental performance stuff, which has been really cool. And I think back in the day you had those more dominant type head coaches, where nowadays you're seeing, as I said, those Jurgen Klopp's, Pep Guardiola's, the ones that are better with those relationships with players are becoming the better coaches. So having that sports psych base, that mental performance base, I think will really help me in taking on the next phase.
What's the ultimate goal there? Are you wanting to become a coach of maybe a big rugby team, maybe Stormers, maybe?
Yeah, well, I think starting at the educational route, as in a school or whatever, and kind of applying all the things I've learned there is a great way to start. Sometimes I feel if you go straight from being a professional player into a professional setup, some players do it and they do it really well. But I think to learn a bit of patience and understanding if things aren't always going well in a more school environment is a kind of a good stepping stone.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I don't really know what the future holds. I'm still wanting to play for another year or two for sure.
Okay. So what's the plan there?
Yeah, so play for another year or two. I've finished off in the MLR, the American League, in July. But I'm meant to go back for my second season, but the league's struggling a bit, and they doing away with a lot of the foreign players. So I'm not going back.
Why is that?
I think just finances. There were 11 teams last year, and
So
now,
you were quite costly as an international player. Is that the?
well, I don't know. I don't know what anyone else got paid, but they've gone from 11 teams to 6 or 5, which is a bit sad. I would have loved to have gone back.
Are there crowds there, and is it a game that people watch? Is it quite popular?
Yeah, well, it's growing in the sense that the World Cup's there in 2031.
Right, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the Rugby World Cup. But in terms of the attendance, we'd get 4,000 or 5,000, not bad.
Okay.
But a lot of the fans wouldn't really understand the game. So it'll take a while before kind of people understand the game. And I feel like some of those bigger sports, NFL, NBA, are probably not allowing rugby to take off because, they're
They've
so
got
popular.
so much power
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Be cool to see America on the map with such a big country.
Yeah.
And they must have the skilled players. Like USA Sevens always does super well.
Yeah, I mean, when anything becomes an Olympic sport in America, they put a lot
They
of
push,
finance.
right,
They
right.
push. But it's a hard one because, even when players go from rugby league to rugby union, if they've, let's say at the age of 20, if they haven't had a rugby union background, it does take a while to adapt. So imagine someone coming from an NFL or American football or basketball, whatever background, it can take a while. So it's up to the coaches, I suppose, to create the systems to allow that.
So when a player is underperforming, how difficult is he to get back to like a good fit? Let me take Marnie Lebok as an example. Like he's under immense pressure with his kicking. How much mental strain is he taking, and how does he flip the switch there?
Yeah, well, I think if you look back in his career, he went to the Bulls and he went to the Sharks, and then he kind of made a name for himself at Western Province Stormers. So I think he definitely built up a bit of resilience in those years prior.
What do you mean by that? Was he already struggling with the kicking then?
No, well, I mean, he went from the Bulls to the Sharks. He wasn't getting much game time at either
right.
place. So, like, building resilience just in a mental framework for sure. And I feel like he was probably similar to me where, you're playing in a structure and a shape that might not allow for what you want to do at times.
Right.
And I always tell other coaches that a big philosophy of mine is space over shape. So you're looking for the space. Where is the space? Kind of like in my youth and in my age group stuff, I was more only looking at the space. Whereas when I became more in these professional setups, it would be only worrying about the shape. My head would be not looking at the gap. It would be kind of looking at my forward pod or looking at the ruck or not really finding the space, So I say space over shape.
That's interesting. Is that why you always found the gap at school?
Well, I mean, hopefully I still try to find gaps now.
I think if you watch your YouTube video, like you're taking the gap as one of your,
Yeah, well, I think I played a bit more fullback at school.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming into this, so like I would come to England and, I had to learn about
structure,
a bit more structure, a bit more of the kicking game. Back in South Africa, everything's different. Japan, like everywhere is different, So Marnie definitely built up resilience from those two teams. And then I think he probably felt most at home at the Stormers because, Davy Sneeman, he was my coach at the Stormers and also in my age group, he allows you to kind of be a bit more freer in the system.
To play with a bit more freedom, basically.
To play with a bit more freedom, right. Yes.
Outside of like the team structure that's happened. So when it comes to play, because this is now interesting, when it comes to playing other teams and playing in the structure, that's the question, how much structure is there versus like free rugby play? Are we talking like 80-20? Is that a big aspect of South African rugby? Like we don't know any of this stuff, watching on TV.
So it's a hard one because if you look at the Bristol Bears, who play a very attractive brand of rugby, they are like 95% structure. So everything they're doing is very structured. Where you get a team like, I don't really know too in depth, but Toulouse, they also have a structure, but maybe less so, but they're looking for offloads. They're getting the ball alive around the scrum off area, around the ruck, which is because of Anton Dupont, obviously, with his work around the breakdown. You look at other teams that, maybe the Springboks rely on their power game. Maybe at the last World Cup was a power game, and then one or two individuals like a Ches and Colby to be like that game breaker type thing. Whereas now it's that power game, it's those individuals out wide, but then it's also, you got Sasha, you got centers, you got Marnie, even Hundre, all those players, Grant Williams, they come in, and then it's like 1 to 15, you've got finesse. Whereas before it would be like 1 to 8 and then maybe 14.
It's funny because some games I see Ches and Colby like hardly participating. It's weird, like you say, because there's so many other players that now have the sort of freedom to play, and he's sort of left on the wing.
Well, the thing about him is
this is an amateur.
No. He's not just good at those those finishing touches you see. The fundamental things like high ball catching or effort stuff, chasing kicks. He's really good at that too. And I think so. The way they've grown their game model is just it's revolutionary, and I think everyone's quite jealous.
I love that. I was going to ask about Sasha Feinberg because he obviously, again, you look at a player like that, exceptional skill, world class, but has a mental edge to him. You would think to the better. He's got that, like, I don't want to say arrogance is not the right word.
No, it's definitely not arrogance. It's kind of backing your ability. He
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that speech when he was like 10 years
Yes.
old, like or
Yes.
13, 12 years old. You could tell he had the confidence, and I think what is a very hard thing for Sasha was around that matric time was COVID.
Mm,
And
that's interesting.
his brother once got me to watch one of his under 16 games back in the day, and I went and watched, and I was like, this guy he's something special. So then when I kind of heard about him not playing much around that COVID time, I was a bit like, "Ooh," I thought maybe, you struggle, you need
Could
to
have been
go
detrimental.
through your
Yeah.
age groups and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the way he's grown in the last few years has been amazing, and I think he's got a good team around him. Rassi's backed him, which is great.
Mm.
Him and Marnie were vying it out at the Stormers. Marnie actually helping him when he was playing 12 or 15. They're good teammates at the Springboks. Marnie's now gone to Japan, so he'll be getting more game time. It's all kind of working well for both of them, which is so good.
So if you had a message for Sasha now, in this beginning phase of like what could be a 10-year, world-class reign, what would that be?
Well, for me, is that like in a few teams that I've been in, the best thing for me was when I could be myself in a team. And maybe in my later years, I could be more myself. So you're playing a bit of an act when you're younger. But I think the more he can be himself, which he's definitely doing, I think, and that's probably why he's being so successful, just follow that. So, you can be yourself. You can talk in meetings. You can interact with a 35-year-old player when you're 20 and be yourself and lead as a fly-off and not shy away from that. I think that's probably the best bit of advice, but it's not even advice because he's already doing that.
Yeah.
And I'd also say focus again on those fundamentals because his running game, his out-of-hand kicking game is good, but, you want to be an 80% goal kicker, and that's why Dan Carter was and Johnny Wilkinson have become like the goats of the game as a fly-off, and he can definitely do that if the goal kicking stays above 80.
Is it above 80 now? I think someone actually said to me the other day, I think it was 72, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know.
Yeah. But the kicking is such a big part of the game, and ultimately you need your fly-off to kick, unless the fullback's kicking.
Yeah, well, he can play 10 and 15 on the same level, which is good. Guys like Nick Evans, good fly-offs, great fly-offs. A lot of them started off at fullback, so I think he's got that fullback view. He's played inside centre. He's playing fly-off now. So, wherever they put him, even in the Stormers backline, I'm sure he'll be happy, So he's got a great attitude, and he even though he's young, he definitely has worked for it. He's worked really hard. He's very fit, That's another thing that separates the good from the great is like having a running engine, and he's got speed. So he's actually ticking all the right boxes here.
Yeah.
And from what I see, his mental performance stuff is really good, and he has a brother who's very supportive of with him. They have a good relationship. I think his dad's kind of, his family relationship seems good. So, and the way he is with all his coaches, he's a happy kid, So it's really good.
Yeah, you don't see it much where someone's too big for their boots in rugby, almost. Like you don't really get that. I think you get it more in football. And you always wonder, like, you don't want to, because also like social media and all those type of things, like people maybe hang to fame too much, and then they forget about the actual focus of rugby. But I think with our South African players, they're too passionate about the rugby to care really about anything else.
That is very true, but I think there's no time to be fully yourself because it's a contact physical sport. So every day you're getting tested, and I think that humility definitely grows. It definitely grows week in and week out. How you take a loss, how you bounce back from a loss, and the best teams are the ones that can bounce back from losses. It's not about winning 100% of your games. It's actually losing one or two or three games and bouncing back from those, which the Springboks are brilliant at. Saris are brilliant at.
Well, that's what I mean, that was the original question, and I use Marnie as an example, but like, how do these players come back from getting, mentally drained, say on a couple of strings of losses? Have you gone through that in your career? Like, and to have to bounce back against maybe a difficult opponent, like how do you sort of break through that barrier?
Well, I think like when I was a bit younger, I used to dread those Monday mornings if you had not such a good game, sitting there in the video review. But then, like, obviously, a part of it was me, but then another part was maybe the environment not allowing me at times, or it might have just been me, but not playing well enough. But no, they're definitely. But nowadays we see it's been in forever, but all those resilient building things are what make you better. So Sasha having 10 out of 10 games in a row, it'll make him a bit better, but it's not going to make him better for the time that something doesn't go right.
Yeah.
So those things that kind of don't work out perfectly are definitely the ways you grow.
Yeah, they always talk about, you learn from your failures.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for you, as a rugby player and going through so many ups and downs, I mean, it's quite interesting to learn, the process from an outside view. We just watch the games, you don't really know what's going on off the field.
Yeah, it can be tough at times, but I suppose
Who would you say you are off the field? Like, walk us through a little bit about what you do off the field.
so. In my
Learn about rugby.
yeah, exactly. No, well, you'd have to do a bit of your video analysis type stuff. You try stay involved in the game, and but at the same time, you do want to switch off. And I think in my earlier 20s, I'm 32 now. In my earlier 20s, I wasn't as focused on my body.
Because you still enjoy yourself, have a drink, like
now and then. Definitely do that. Friends, family, if there's an occasion. Definitely in team socials, I would always drink and enjoy them. Probably, yeah. And then
probably too much. Is that what you
No,
mean?
I'd probably like prioritize doing it then rather
Right.
than like I
Other
don't drink
times.
weekly,
Yeah.
So like when I was younger, I was completely obsessed with kicking for posts. I would go to the false play fields, and then I just carried on doing that, and I probably kicked too much. Not in the sense of learning a wrong technique, but just like the groins and the little muscles that kind of meet, from groins to core to hips, whatever.
Interesting.
And I've had 2 groin surgeries.
Wow.
The first one ended up not being successful, and I had to it was towards the end of my Stormers' second year, and I could hardly run, and I had to pay for my own surgery abroad
wow.
because no one could fix it in South Africa. So a thing for me would be more focused on like the warming up, the small muscles, the professionalism at a younger age. Because even now at the school, when I coach at, I go and I see the young guys are just kicking on a
Randomly,
2-degree Wednesday. They're coming out and they're just kicking for posts. Whereas there'll be some effect there surely later on, So when I got into my later 20s, I started really enjoying the sauna, the ice, my gym, my stretching, and all of that. And I definitely have seen a difference since.
So do you have like a daily routine, or are you quite relaxed?
So when I'm in a rugby environment, they kind of have a routine for you and the program.
Right.
So like for 12, 13 years, I've literally been given on a Sunday evening my routine for the week.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
but
quite
now-
nice to have. Like,
really
you
nice.
just follow it.
And that's why some rugby players struggle afterwards, because you just like have to do your own routine.
Yeah.
But I've had a bit of time now over the years, kind of having a few more short-term deals
Yeah.
to enjoy my own routine, which has actually been really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't so into the gym when I was in these routines and teams, but then when I met my wife, she was quite into the gym, and I kind of started enjoying it away from rugby.
Okay.
And now I really love it, and she's like taking a bit of a backseat. No, I'm joking. She likes it too, but that's funny how like kind of
Yeah. You found passion for it outside.
from seeing her do it, which has been really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I have a routine of like I'll do like 15-20 minute sauna, 3-4 minute ice bath. I probably should stretch a bit more, but I'm a bit in.
Well, I also struggle with the stretching. I mean, it's hard for us to do so much and stretch. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone, we have all these things, and obviously stretching just comes down low on the list. It's nicer to sit in the sauna. It's nicer to sit in the ice bath. It's a mission to stretch,
Yeah, well, I feel like if you can build quite an holistic session into it, so you do let's say you do 10-15 minutes of running with a bit of sprints. Obviously I'll have my kicking somewhere in there, but you do your sprints, your running, then you can do like a total body session, and then you do a quick sauna ice afterwards. Then that's kind of everything for me.
Yeah.
And then the nutrition side of it. So like when I do mentor these younger players, I do talk about the mental performance stuff, but if they ask me just on a mentorship level about a little bit of nutrition stuff or a little bit of physical training stuff that I've experienced in my career on more of a human level, I will kind of volunteer that
So what would be the advice? Just to take it a little bit more seriously earlier on, basically.
Yeah, so one guy I worked with had a bit of a hamstring problem, and he said, he's hydrating a lot. But then I kind of said, how's your electrolytes? Because it's not just about having water, it's also maybe adding some electrolytes to that, and he's been good ever since.
So I have a hamstring problem.
Get on your electrolytes.
No, but so it's one of the muscles that just gets sore every time when I train.
But it doesn't pull? Or
It almost gets there. Like when I'm unfit, and when you're training for a race like the Ironman, over the months you get loose, so it doesn't hurt as much.
Okay.
But like it's the first muscle that always sort of goes. It doesn't pull because I'm not really running fast enough. On a rugby pitch, you have to sprint and things like that. So we're always going at a controlled pace. But definitely is a muscle that I struggle with.
Well, I can't advise you too much to know about a physio, but
But I
Yeah.
probably just need to stretch more. I mean, that's ultimately,
It's not always stretching more. It might be a glute thing or a lower back
or
thing.
strengthening more, maybe.
Strengthening, yeah. It's not always on the area you
Yeah.
think, sometimes.
So talking about, us amateur athletes, I think, we've spoken about all the pros. How important is mental performance for an amateur athlete? Should we be focusing on it more when doing races like half marathons, half Ironmans? I don't think too many people are taking to the mental aspect of it. Should we be?
I think definitely, yes. So with this performance psychology, it's not just for athletes and sportsmen and women. It's for performers, so your artists, your actresses, your actors. And there's definitely something in the corporate sense that could be implemented here for sure. I'd love to go into some corporate type work one
because
day.
that's also a whole nother
Big
mental
space.
game.
All the
Yeah.
self-talk stuff, the mindfulness, bit of the imagery,
It's all the same thing,
self-regulation, and all the techniques are kind of around that. But yeah, for amateur athletes, for sure, I definitely think there's a space for it. I mean, even if you writing down something so simple as writing down your process goals, short-term goals, performance goals, outcome goals, whatever it may be, and being accountable to that, self-talk techniques, strategies, building confidence, motivation, all of that. There's definitely a
Yeah.
space for that. I mean, me as a professional athlete, my goal is to, when I become an amateur athlete, is to do all the things you do. So it's never like, there's also, when you do your Ironmans, I'm like, wow, that's as impressive as these guys playing rugby or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
So I think, there's definitely space for that is for anyone to kind of build their mental performance.
I was telling you that when I'm training, I think about the finish line. Like, for some reason, that just replays in my head, and it helps me get through like a 3-hour run.
Amazing.
It just, it's just repetitiveness. And then you ultimately get to the finish line. And that's similar to what you were telling me about how you or rugby players would picture like taking a gap or making that pass or doing that play over and over again, so that when it comes to game day, it comes naturally.
Yes, obviously the training in your week, you want to implement all those things, whether you're getting line breaks. And what I found a lot is that, like, for let's say 2-3 weeks, you aren't really implementing the things you want to in training, it won't happen in the game. So like, you have to train it for it to actually appear in the game.
Right.
So you guys were doing your running, your long
Like, no
distance
matter
running.
what. Like,
Yeah. And sometimes when I was younger, I'd have the mindset of, you can just rock up, a bit like my goal kicking when I was younger. I had a higher tee, longer run up, and I've kicked from a young age, and I could just quite a casual style. But then I once missed quite a crucial kick for Harlequins, and then that off season I changed my whole routine into more of a process driven approach. And whether there was one person watching or many more, I'd have that same routine, and my kicking percentage went up so much, So kind of those kind of stories that I tell these young guys, and it helps them. Well, it hopefully helps them, and it's cool to talk about.
What's that word that people use when you envision something and it comes to life? I've lost the word.
What, visualization or imagery?
Yeah, visualization. But there's another word. Manifestation. Yes. Like, are you a man of manifestation? Like, do you believe that can actually? Because I've heard people on podcasts talk about it like quite real.
Yeah,
like,
it's quite a hard one. Because in the sense, if you manifest a red Polo, as in like a car, you'll probably see it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's like
100%.
If you manifest something, is it actually
it's
appearing?
The color you're looking
but
for.
Is it happening, or is it because you're looking for it? You see? So I think it's for me, I'm more pro the visualization part.
Right.
So like when I'm kicking for posts in training, I'm looking at the post and I'm kind of visualizing that ball going over, and then I'll give it a try and see if, then once it goes over to that spot I want it to go to, then I'm
thinking
like,
about a specific spot.
Yeah, specific spot. I'm like, like, it's kind of like I've already kicked that because I've visualized it, So it kind of, you build those patterns with yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I always find it like, if you tell yourself a million times, like, does it come true? Because there must be certain things that just can't happen. You can visualize yourself becoming a billionaire, but like, it doesn't happen. So there must be limitations to that.
Well, unless if your visualization leads to action, then you're good. Then you could be the billionaire.
Yeah.
Same with the manifestation. It's just you're kind of moving your mind to a focal point of something rather than being just too general or too broad. So these things all work in different ways for people, and it's kind of how you get the best out of someone with it. With, let's say, the work.
The mental performance just also interesting, because I spoke to a guy called Chris Taylor once.
Oh, yes.
And he told me not enough people are going to, like, not a psychologist, but like a mental performance coach, because when you're out there in these endurance things, you can crack mentally. And I've seen that before. It's just, we don't have time. So I can speak only for myself. For me to now add going to a mental performance, it's like, one, it might cost too much, and two, there might not be enough time. So we want all these things. And one of the biggest problems we have, we watch these pro sportsmen, or now social media professionals, should we say, doing all these cool activities like Ironmans and stuff, and doing them really well. And then we think that we can do the same, but we have limitations like a 9 to 5. So I can't look at someone and say, well, I can train like you. I want to train like you because I want to be as good as you, but I have a 9 to 5. So I can only train 6 to 8 or, 7 to 9 in the evening. And like people forget that, and then, completely break because they're trying to do too many things at once.
Yeah, I suppose for me, it's like when you're in that team environment, you might be winning and you might have that team motivation, the team confidence, the team everything, the goals, the team goals. But then kind of what's happening with those individuals within the team, they might not have confidence, they might not have motivation, their emotional regulation might not be high. So that's where I want to kind of plug the gap of, where you do one-on-ones with these players and you mentor them with the mental performance stuff. And, they say rugby's a team sport, but, you can also look at it as an individual sport. And then when you come together, it has that kind of team element and that group cohesion, So it's for me, rugby's both an individual and a team sport.
That's interesting.
You got to kind of focus on you and upskill yourself physically and mentally. And then how that goes into the team creates that team environment. And as you say, like we gym 99% of the time, we're gymming, we're doing tactics, we technical this, we're on the field, but 1% is probably on your like a lot of these players are speaking to their agents, their rugby agents for that kind of guidance. But at times it might not be.
Yeah.
Some of them are good people, but a lot of them are just after the commission. But yeah, so who do these players look for? You'll look to go to.
Well, that's big. I'm going to name another player that's quite an interesting one, Pollock. So like his mental, everyone's talking about him as a player and like the way he stood at the haka and like all that type of thing. But do you think that's he's just being him? Like it's just a natural element for him to be the silly guy, and everyone has that personality and that fits in the team?
Well, I suppose if he's being himself, like I spoke about earlier, if you can be yourself in a team environment, that's the ultimate. So is he being himself? Is that who he is? Hopefully, because it's what he's doing. But for me, it would be like if he has a run of 3, 4, 5 not so good games, will he still be like that and act the way he does? And hopefully, because that's him. And he's allowed to be himself in these teams. So good on him. I mean,
yeah. He's super good. I mean,
I haven't watched too much, but I've seen some good line breaks. He's kind of a good impact player. He comes in and
brings that flair, that impact player. One that's going to get under your skin.
And he probably lifts his teammates around him more than anyone thinks.
Yeah.
So like with that personality and that kind of endeavor to be a bit different and be a bit loud and out there, I think it probably lifts his teammates to maybe be themselves more. I don't know.
He's the type of player that would get Irvin to eye poke him with both thumbs, I think.
Yeah.
Did you see? We spoke about it, and then he got his ban after we spoke about it. 12 weeks.
12 weeks, sure.
I think that was a pretty good result.
I know it's hard.
We touched on it in terms of, that's my question sort of to you, is like, do the rugby players sometimes with these red cards and stuff, do they think they're going to get away with something? Or do you think tempers are just so high that they maybe just slip concentration and make a mistake? And I'll give you a good example. The first card in the Irish game against South Africa, where the lock drove his shoulder through the ruck and hit Malcolm in the head. Do you think that was a temper rage, or do you think he just made a mistake there in the heat of the moment clearing that ruck? The rest of the cards in the game were obviously just because they were under too much pressure. Or do you think maybe I can get away with just giving Malcolm a...
I think when you're playing against the Springboks, the one thing that team will talk about in the week is physicality and being either matching them physically or trying to out-physical them. So I don't think he's thinking about being dirty in that moment. He's just trying to clean the ruck as hard as he can.
Right.
He kind of... It was a bit reckless.
He's just left his arm behind, basically.
A bit reckless, exactly. Trying to go hard. And that's unfortunate what's happened.
So, but in other cases like Evans, it's just tempers. I mean, you've been on the rugby pitch. Like, have you lost your temper and maybe done something?
Well, I think as a fly-off, you're not known to be the first one in the fights.
Yeah. Although Sasha's been there.
In the brawls. Yeah, he's there. Yeah, maybe. But yeah, maybe they're targeting him. But Yeah, I don't really know. I think it's just spur of the moment. No, he's definitely not intentionally trying to like poke the guy's eye out for sure.
Yeah.
I just think it's like pushing and shoving, and that day it was wrong. And he's got his ban. Has a clean disciplinary record. So hopefully,
I heard Andre Sevilla stood up for him in his appeal.
Well, good on him.
But it's because it's interesting because obviously the rugby changed now. If you touch the head, it's foul play, and obviously that's getting tough because some people are short, and then the shoulder, you leave the arm behind, and that's sort of a red. So we're seeing quite a lot of mistakes being made. It's not the players trying to be reckless, as you say. It's just in the moment, it's split seconds when the rugby player is running at you. Like you have to sort of make the decision, make the tackle, maybe make the wrong call.
I think we're going through a few years of that transition. So like what they've brought in at schoolboy level and younger age groups is that lower tackle. So, it will take a few years for these like silly decisions to kind of start easing away.
I do like the card system. Do you like the card system?
I like the 20-minute. I think not 20-minute. I think it should always, if the ref's 50-50, it should always be a yellow card with a review.
Yeah.
And then.
But I like the 20-minute red. Someone else has to come on the field, but they only have 14 men for 20 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't ruin the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, some teams actually become better when they have 14 men. No, I'm serious, because it invigorates a team, and it's like, oh, good friend, he's off the field, let's do it for him.
Yeah.
He was unfortunate to go off. We're a team, and it sometimes brings a bit of spark to and then you kind of double beat them when you've won a game with 14 men.
But you can also you kind of can cover all the bases with 14 men. I mean, Ireland were down to 12 at one stage.
If it's a scrum off, it's quite hard.
Yeah. Well, that's where we got Colby that can step in.
Exactly.
Or some teams can have. Yeah. But when the French lose to Pont, it's disaster basically. Yeah. Do you want to ask you before you go, for a message for our community, sort of, or for a young rugby player or someone that's maybe struggling with their mental performance? What would be your sort of message to them? Say, like a young rugby player coming up the ranks, what would you like them to focus on?
Yeah, so it kind of comes down to the thing I said earlier about the controllables. So the work you're putting in with your gym training, your fitness stuff, your whatever skill you need in your sport. If you can focus on those things, kind of away from those uncontrollables, like if that coach likes me, if I'm injured, obviously injury is a bit of a catch-22 because you can sometimes prevent it with good conditioning, but, selection stuff, politics type stuff, so really focus on those controllables. So from nutrition to the mental performance stuff to kind of, my big thing with young rugby players is to start watching more rugby. So nowadays with TikTok and Instagram, you're getting these quick highlights, 10 seconds this, 10 seconds that, and the guys aren't watching proper 80-minute games. So my big thing is whatever sport you're doing or wanting to be good at, watch that sport more, and you can learn that way. And then obviously it's not just about the player, it's also maybe their parents to maybe put less pressure on their kids, let them enjoy it first. The enjoyment aspect of sport for me is the key. So if you'd ask me what are the key things for a coach, I'd say you want to improve. You definitely want to improve your team. You want them to enjoy what they're doing, and then you want to challenge them. So, back to the player, you want to challenge yourself, you want to improve, and you want to enjoy what you do.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. And I really like this path that you're on. I think you're on a fantastic, this mental performance and reaching back to the younger generation and trying to help them through with stuff that you didn't have. So I think that's fantastic.
Thanks.
And thank you so much. That was good.
Thank
you for coming on.
Yeah, pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
All good. That was sick.